One of the hosts of First Take on ESPN every single day from 10 a.m. to noon. He's got his own radio show, as we all know, on ESPN Radio, simulcast on ESPN News every day between 1 and 3 Eastern, but he's taken the day off from this to do PTI again with Mr. Tony. He is Stephen A. Smith. How you doing, Stephen A.?
What's going on, Rich? How you doing, buddy? How's everything?
You know what? I just needed a little Hollis Queens in my life. That's what I needed. That's all I needed.
I got you. How are you doing? How's the lovely wife? Please give her my love.
Susie,
a lot of people might not know she and I go back a very, very long ways, but I know you know that.
I do know that. And Susie sends her best back to you as well. Hey, what do you make of Kawhi being able to lift the phone and call Paul George up, and then the Oklahoma City situation just gets blown up? Should that be something that has some sort of legislation from the league to prevent? Stephen A., what do you think?
I disagree with that. It was definitely an epic move on the part of Kawhi Leonard. Make no mistake about that. To be a star of his caliber, to be a two-time NBA Finals champion, NBA champion rather than an NBA Finals MVP, and to be a free agent, to go to the Los Angeles Clippers and to basically say, look, LeBron and AD are in the Staples Center, the same city, the same town, same arena. They're playing. And I'm not about to come here and try to compete with that by myself. I've got a guy that I want to play with, but you'll have to go get him. The Los Angeles Clippers did not have to capitulate. They had the freedom to pass. The Oklahoma City Thunder certainly did not have to capitulate. It certainly didn't benefit them. They could, in terms of losing Paul George, they could have passed. They elected not to, and that's the price of doing business. It is what it is. When we look at these guys, you got to remember, Sam Presti was on the phone contemplating potentially moving Russell Westbrook and Paul George to the Toronto Raptors, even though it's a part of the agreement, the contract that the players sign, whereas the players don't sign a contract that says, you know what, you can come in and demand a trade in the event that you're not happy. The reality is the power still lies with the team. This notion that the players have the power is something that I vehemently disagree with, because you don't have to capitulate. You could tell them to kick rocks. They're under contract. You go out there and you perform because we have you under contract and we have your rights. You could elect to do that. It might not be wise in terms of the kind of culture that would be compromised or what have you, but the power still lies with the team because they are the ones that have the contracts at their disposal. They didn't have to capitulate. They elected to. And it turns out that it boded well for them because they got 5 first-round picks and 2 players.
The number of times that I've heard from your colleagues who have come on this show, Ramona Shelburne, Windhorst, others who are clearly locked in as well as you, that they're like, well, as soon as a star player asks out, you just gotta show them the door, because it's very difficult to have that athlete there, and they can make life difficult for the team. I've never heard of an instance of an NBA general manager saying, no, we're not trading you, Stephen A. It just seems to be a contract is different in the NBA.
Well, there's definitely a difference. Like in the National Football League, please. We all know that the power lies with, the teams and their respective owners and ownership. But in the case of the National Basketball Association, the players have become brands and commodities in and of themselves. They're like 12 individual corporations, for crying out loud. But understand what that also means. It also means that they have tremendous value. Let's, again, take Paul George, for example. Paul George was a star with the Indiana Pacers that was flourishing, and he was elevating himself to superstar status when he got injured in Summer League play playing for Team USA, okay? Then he was out for a year and obviously came back, needed to get his legs under him, and then last year he returned to star-studded status, averaging 28 and 8. It was his best season. Rich Eisen, there's no championship on Paul George's resume. There's not even any evidence, any proof that you walk through the turnstile and sell out arenas for him. Please don't get me wrong. He's a star. He's a first-class guy all the way. But he's not LeBron James. This is not some iconic brand that goes overseas and, it's like the second coming of Michael Jackson or Michael Jordan or somebody like that. That kind of status is reserved for the likes of a LeBron James. So all I'm saying to you is that when we look at it from that perspective, you still have to look at it and say, damn, they got 4 unprotected first-round picks for this guy, an additional protected first-round pick, plus Danilo Gallinari and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's considered a young phenom with incredible potential as a point guard on the National Basketball Association level for years and years and years to come, who's only in his second league, this is his rookie campaign. So think about that. You got 5 picks, all first-rounders, and 2 starters for 1 player. And this guy is not even considered the superstar, the likes of a LeBron James or Kawhi Leonard or even an Anthony Davis. Yes, Paul George has incredible value, but keep in mind, you did not have to capitulate. What Sam Presti was able to do was manufacture his presence on the Oklahoma City Thunder's roster contractually and parlay that into something incredibly significant in the eyes of all parties concerned. I don't see where the complaint is. I truly don't.
Stephen A. Smith from Stephen A. Smith Show on radio, and also First Take every day on ESPN from 10 a.m. to noon, and then, of course, later on with Mr. Tony on PTI right here on the Rich Eisen Show. I give you the Lakers roster and also coaching staff. I give you the Clippers coaching staff and roster. Which one do you choose?
I'm going with the Clippers. I think the Lakers have a better duo in LeBron and Anthony Davis, but I think the Clippers have a more complete team. Kawhi Leonard is a superstar in this league. He's a top 5 player. Paul George is a top 10 player. The two of them together, their skill set, along with their poise and temperament on the basketball court, complements one another. And, oh, by the way, they're elite two-way players. They don't just play offense. Both are accustomed to having prime defensive assignments and answering the call on a night-in, night-out basis. Then you add to that Patrick Beverley, who's arguably the best defensive point guard in the entire NBA. You acquired Mo Harkless, ultimately, who was on Portland last year, okay? And so when you look at it from that perspective, and you still kept Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams coming off the bench, I look at the Clippers as being a more complete package. They've got perimeter shooting. They're going to be an elite defensive team. They got an abundance of rough riders on their squad who ain't scared of anything. They can shoot perimeter shots. And the ultimate X factor is that they have Doc Rivers and the Los Angeles Lakers have Frank Vogel. No disrespect to Frank Vogel. He coached the Indiana Pacers to back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals appearances years ago. His stint in Orlando was less attractive, less compelling. But that's not to say the man can't coach at all. But at no time in his career was he ever confused with being the quality of a coach, the quality of a motivator that is Doc Rivers. And I think you take that all into consideration, and you have to give the Clippers the edge over the Los Angeles Lakers, who went out. You got Boogie Cousins, and you got Danny Green, and you brought back Rajon Rondo, and you kept Kyle Kuzma. But they still need some shooters. And I think that when you look at it from that perspective, I think the Clippers are better as perimeter shooters. I think the Clippers are better as defenders, and I think they have better coaching. So the combination of all those things, I would say, give them the edge. But it is basketball, and they do have the better dynamic duo. And I think Anthony Davis and LeBron James can change all of that. But the Clippers still should be considered a better team at this particular moment in time.
Did you hear, Stephen A., that the LA Times reported that Uncle Dennis and Kawhi asked Magic about his appearance on your show on First Take, about what was going on in the front office, and that might have been part of the reason why Kawhi decided to create his own super team? Did you hear about all that, Stephen?
I did not. I did not hear about that, but I'm not surprised. I think that if Magic Johnson was still with the Los Angeles Lakers would have had a better opportunity of acquiring Kawhi Leonard. Magic Johnson, who I know very well, obviously, this was in the works over the last 3 years. What he had plotted and planned was to get LeBron first, Anthony Davis second, and Kawhi Leonard or Kevin Durant third. That was the plan. And then ultimately things went awry. And so it wouldn't surprise me at all if Kawhi Leonard and Uncle Dennis asked that question. Magic Johnson knows Uncle Dennis very well. He knows one of Kawhi's other friends, this guy Wilkes, that was at UCLA. Jerry West knows them too, by the way, and credit to Jerry West. But Magic knew these guys. Obviously, Rob Pelinka, the general manager for the Los Angeles Lakers, had been working to, try to figure out some things about Kawhi via Steve Fisher, who was Kawhi's coach in college at San Diego State, who also coached Rob Pelinka
That's right.
when he was a reserve on the Fab Four. And so he was trying to use that connection. But ultimately, I think that Kawhi wanted to go and play for Doc Rivers. I think he looked at the billionaire, the richest owner in all of sports, in Steve Ballmer. He looked at arguably the greatest executive in the history of the sport being his right-hand man, in Jerry West. He looked at Lawrence Frank in the front office, their medical staff. He looked at Doc Rivers, and he said, this is a first-class organization. But the Lakers were still appealing enough where you could use that as legitimate blackmail, per se. You could use them as leverage to go back to the Clippers and say, if you don't go and get Paul George, I'm going to go and play with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Now, whether Kawhi Leonard officially and literally did that, Rich Eisen, I believe he did, but I don't know. But what I will tell you is this. That's what he told the Clippers. That I can tell you. The Clippers were incredibly, incredibly fearful that if they did not sign Kawhi Leonard, he was going to be a Laker. Originally, weeks leading up to it, I had a couple of members of the organization saying there was no way in hell we were going to lose out on Kawhi Leonard to the Los Angeles Lakers. But in those last 24 hours, they firmly believed they were about to lose him to the Los Angeles Lakers. And Steve Ballmer was not having that. And Doc Rivers was not having that. Jerry West was not having that. And that's why they pulled the trigger.
Before I send you off to ride home, and Mr. Tony and that fantastic group there in D.C., awesome crew for PTI. Now
yes,
that they're amazing. So now that they're all the chips have pretty much fallen. We don't know if Westbrook's going to be on the move or not, but I don't think he's going to go to a team that would appreciably tilt some balance.
He is on the move, though, Rich. He is on the move. They can't keep Russell Westbrook because the message has been sent to them loudly and clearly that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is incredibly promising, but that his growth would be compromised by being on the team with Russell Westbrook. So since you're clearly not competing anyway in OKC, you have to make the call to move Russell Westbrook out of there, which he now officially has welcomed, because you're clearly rebuilding. You're going young. You're stockpiling picks. They just made a pick with Denver, giving up a player for Denver's first-round pick as well. Mm-hmm. They're going to use some of those picks to probably try to get somebody to take Russell Westbrook's 4 years, $170 million remaining on his contract. You're not going to see people clamoring to take that straight up. Yeah. They'll want something with Russell Westbrook, and they'll use those picks to do it.
Fascinating. You think it's Miami, Stephen A.? You think it'll be Miami?
I think Miami's got a decent shot. They want him. I can tell you that they want him. Whether or not they have what it takes to get him remains to be seen. It depends on who's going to compete. The Knicks are going to try to compete in all likelihood. Clearly, Miami wants him. If I had to bet my money, I'm certainly not going to bet against Pat Riley. How Russell Westbrook and Jimmy Butler will work, I'm not sure. But here's the reality. Miami has religiously had one of the highest payrolls in basketball over the last several years, right, and little to nothing to show for it. At some point in time, you've got to be back in the picture. Adding Russell Westbrook, as shaky as that may be in some people's eyes of pairing him with Jimmy Butler, if you add Russell Westbrook in Miami, now that Kawhi Leonard has left, Mirotic and Brogdon are going from Milwaukee, Al Horford and Kyrie Irving are going from Boston, and Philadelphia is looking for a shooter now that they've lost J.J. Redick and Jimmy Butler. Even though they added Horford and retained Tobias Harris, the East is perceived as being wide open, and as a result, Pat Riley may sense that, and as a result may pull the trigger because of what Butler and Westbrook together could potentially do for them in the Eastern Conference. Yet, it may happen.
The question I was going to ask you was, West, now that the pieces have landed, who do you like to win the West, Stephen A.? Last one for you.
Me, I think the Clippers should be the favorites, but I think it's the Clippers or the Lakers. I don't think Portland, Utah, all of these teams have improved. Nurkic is coming back in Portland. Yeah. Denver can't be ignored. Utah with Conley and Bogdanovich and these boys, they're a threat. Houston can't be ignored. I'm still going with the two L.A. teams. One of them, to me, are coming out of the West. And I think the NBA Finals next year will be in L.A. at the Staples Center. I'm just not sure which team it's going to be.
Well, then dinner's on me, Stephen A. Dinner's on me if that happens next year.
I'm going to take you up on that, buddy.
Absolutely.
Consider it done.
You've got it. Thanks again. Susie sends her best. Have a great time. Say hi to Tony and everybody else there, and I look forward to the next time already. Appreciate it.
Tony just peaked and sends his best as well. You take it easy, buddy.
Fantastic. You got it. That's Stephen A. Smith.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download The Rich Eisen Show app.